Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. The Grant.
My name is Niels Tudor Winter, and I'm the creator, editor, and host of The Grant. The Grant is an independent podcast initiative with the ambition to dig into all corners of the EU R&D funding system on topics of interest for the full EU R&D funding community. This episode is part of my new Widening Series with focus on the Widening Programme under Horizon Europe. Thomas Brent and I recorded the podcast episode some time ago about the FP10 discussions. Behind the curtain, we discussed the Widening Programme and the new FP10 position papers, where some countries were suggesting to slash it from the framework programme and move the funding to the Cohesion Programme. We both thought that was a bad idea and agreed to put our heads together and do a series zooming in on the Widening Programme with Thomas as co-host. Here in this first episode, we have invited Ian Gauci Borda, Maltese Executive NCP and Programme Committee member, into the virtual podcast studio to give us a solid introduction to the Widening Programme and to discuss the possible effects of what has been suggested. Excellent start to a new series, now with co-host. Please enjoy. Welcome to The Grant, the EU funding podcast. Today I'm kicking off a new series, and the thing is, if you're regular, you think, well, it keeps kicking off new series. But that's because it's a good way and it's a good format for me to zoom in on different things and not having to have one episode covering everything, because there's normally more aspects to a given issue. Now, today, we're kicking off a series on the Widening Programme, and that's because, well, actually, we'll get back to that in a second, why we are doing this. But what is special about this series is that I will be having a co-host for once, and that hasn't happened before. Thomas, welcome in.
Thank you, Niels.
You'll be co-hosting together with me in this series, and we're doing this because we both have an interest in the Widening Programme and was baffled that it was suggested to slash it and move funding into the Cohesion Programme. So we discussed this and said, why don't we look into making a series about this, why this programme is important. Now, and we have planned a couple of episodes outlined, and the first one here, we will be talking about we'll be introducing the Widening Programme, what it actually is. But before we have our guest introducing himself, we get to in a second. Thomas, can you say a few words about yourself?
Sure. So the reason that me and Niels actually first started speaking was because I was previously journalist and editor at Science Business, publication based in Brussels, covering R&I policy. And I was actually editing the newsletter dedicated to the widening. So the newsletter went out twice a week. And I was covering all sorts of topics, and that's how Niels and I started discussing. I've since then moved on from Science Business, so I now work for CERN, Particle Accelerator Facility in Geneva. I'm doing communications, working on EU projects, and also their knowledge transfer or tech transfer team. But I keep my interest in the widening. It's a topic close to my heart. So I'm still following avidly all the updates there.
Yeah, it's going to be great to have a co-host. It's nice. I've been running another podcast with my rock band, and there I was co-hosting with our bass player. So it's very nice to have two on the host show. Now
I'm happy to take the role of bass player here.
Yeah. Ian, welcome in.
Hi.
Now, you are our first guest, and you are so because Thomas, we discussed who to invite in for the introduction of the Widening Programme with knowledge about this, and an obvious choice was you, both because you've been in the grant before, regulars will know, explaining about the program committee institution and how that works. So you and there you also shared that you were as such program committee member on the Widening Programme. So it was a natural choice, also because you know Thomas. So there's a triangle here. Thomas referred me to you back then when I wanted someone on the program committee. No, Ian, shortly, for the ones who had not listened to that, so please shortly introduce yourself.
So hi, and thank you for having me again. I'm very happy to be here. My name is Ian Gauci Borda, and I work for Scienza Malta, which is the national funding agency for Malta. I've worked there for quite some time, so now we're counting around 18 years that I've been employed by this entity. I've occupied various positions, but my current position at the moment is that I am the program committee and national contact point for health, the cancer mission, for widening the European research area and research infrastructures, so quite a number of areas. And I also run a number of projects on behalf of Scienza Malta. So I'm also a project manager at the same time.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. Now, let's just get right at it. So, fly in. Now, introducing the series, Thomas, when the Danish government threw out their FP10 position paper as the first government, as the first at all, I think, we were both puzzled.
Yeah.
Because one of the big stories from that position paper was that they suggested to slash the Widening Programme and move the funding into the Cohesion Programme. So we discussed that behind the scenes before our recording back then. And the thing is, we ended up with this, to say, why don't we have informing listeners and the general public what is the widening actually, to avoid any sort of, from an ideological background, right? This is important. We both think that this is important, why it was introduced. So that's why we're doing this. And of course we're going to dig into that. Why? What is the background, and why we think it's important. Now, maybe Ian, can you give a short fly-in on the program? We'll be digging into it, but can you sort of give us and the listeners the 5-sentence introduction to what the Widening Programme is?
Okay, so basically the Widening Programme is part of the Horizon Europe program, which is aimed at having specific initiatives and specific calls which help close this, what we call this innovation divide. This does not mean that the Widening Programme is only open to widening countries, but it's a program open to all countries. And I can tell you that Malta is among the lowest recipients, because when you see the results, you see that Denmark, Netherlands, Italy, they all gain quite a lot out of widening. So this is why it was surprising to see this position by the Danish authorities, because they've been doing quite well in widening, actually. So widening is an open program both for those countries which are lagging behind when it comes to investment in R&D, but also the advanced countries, because we cannot do widening on its own. So it's not a standalone program only for the widening countries, but it has to be in a kind of partnership with the advanced countries as well. So this is why everyone benefits from this part of the program.
Can I add a little bit of context to this as well, which I think is important, which is that, as Jan said, widening is part of Horizon Europe. And what that means is that the fundamental position of widening is the same as Horizon Europe, which is that it's based on excellence. So this is not a program that caters for lower level performance in research or innovation. The only projects that are funded are those that are deemed excellent in line with the rest of the program. But what it does is it helps to attract to Horizon Europe projects or researchers who don't typically apply to the main program, because maybe they're out of the loop in terms of networking, or they don't know how, or for whatever reason they just haven't considered it. So it helps to sort of bring those people into the program, but their projects remain excellent.
Excellent fly a bridge to our general introduction to the Widening Programme. So now, thanks both of you. So we need to establish here what is the background and motivation for opening up the program in the first place, because that's one of the key motivations also for this series. So now I know, let me just, my perception is that this was made to eradicate or try to put a bridge over the division between the old division between the Western Europe and Eastern Europe. It was classical thing that anyone working with the framework programs for a long time knows, that there's been a huge difference in participation frequency by Western organizations, research organizations in particular, and Eastern, your former communist, post-communist countries, because of the historical legacy of that division. Now, with that fly in, Thomas.
Yeah. Over to me?
Yeah.
Okay. So just a general introduction of where the widening came from.
Yeah.
So it was actually launched first in the predecessor to Horizon Europe, Horizon 2020, so back in 2014. So you're right, Niels, that it was brought in to try to close this gap between the better performing countries and the lagging countries. This naturally tends to sort of split geographically, so a lot of people think of this in terms of Western Europe and Eastern Europe, but actually it's not necessarily the case. Portugal is a widening country, for example. Luxembourg used to be, I believe, then it was removed. So it's not an exact split here that we're talking about. But there are now 15 countries considered widening countries. So those that are, I don't want to say eligible to apply, because like Jan said, all countries can be a part of the program, but the widening part is aimed specifically at these 15 countries. So you have to have a representative from one of these 15 countries in order to apply to a call, and then you bring in other partners. So since then, I mean, there has been talk about whether or not the program has been successful or not. The budget for it started off very, very small in Horizon 2020, and it was tripled, I think, for Horizon Europe. So now it's, am I right, Jan? Is it about 3 billion?
3.3% of the program. So it's around about 3 billion, yes.
Yeah. So it was tripled. And now there's questions about whether or not it has effect or not. I think for Horizon Europe, the number of calls within the widening section was increased. So they added a couple of new calls, like the hop-on facility and a few others. And there's still questions over the effectiveness of these calls. And now there's a lot of debate about what calls should be in the widening program, whether the widening program should exist at all, whether it should be funded somewhere else, and all these sorts of questions. From my own personal point of view, I think there has been progress. So I do think that the widening program has helped in some capacity to close this gap, but nevertheless, the innovation gap that everybody talks about between the better performing countries and worse performing countries still does exist. And it's been over 10 years. So
we will be discussing these perspectives later in this episode. Let's just first, Ian, can you give us your input to the background and motivation for starting this off in the first place?
So basically, historically, I mean, the advanced countries, and when I talk about advanced countries, are those who joined from 2004 backwards. Okay, you eliminate Portugal and Greece, and then you have all the rest. So if you look at the partnerships that have been set up under FP7, under Horizon 2020, and under Horizon Europe, you will see a big predominance of repeat applicants from the advanced countries, and a very low take-up from the rest. Okay, so I mean, even now, I just saw the statistics last week. For example, I can pick up one part of Horizon Europe, like the research infrastructures, for example. If you remove Greece and Portugal from the equation, you are left with the widening countries. Just the rest of the widening countries just tapping 2.5% of the budget. And this is the same for the ERC, for the EIC. So it's not a seldom part of the program which is being untapped. As Thomas said, there have been improvements. So the widening program has contributed to an improvement, and I think overall the program, I think we're around 13 to 15% now overall of the program, including widening. Okay, so the participation from the low performing countries has risen. It hasn't risen as much as we wanted to. There is also a split within the widening. So there are some widening countries which are very much advanced and are taking up quite a lot of funding, and others which are still lagging behind. So the motivation was to try and make them catch up with the rest. If I should say, did it happen or did it not? It happened to us through a slow effect. So the effect has been quite slow so far, I would say.
Yeah, we'll get to the experience and so where the program is and has landed after these years. But let us just let us place it a little bit within the Horizon Europe family, so to say, because it's a little bit special, right? It's sort of horizontal with topics. So can you share, Ian, how it's built up?
So how the widening is
the widening calls.
Yes. Okay.
So
we have, at the moment, it's quite simple. You have 3 destinations. Okay. The first one, I would say it's more institutional. So it's more targeted towards universities, research organizations, public authorities. And here is where you have the typical normal calls, like, for example, teaming, twinning, excellence hubs, the pathways to synergies, the European Excellence Initiative, for example. And these are more at institution building. Okay. Then destination 2 is more centered around people, around the scientists in the widening country. So there you have the ERA Talents Call, you have the ERA Fellowships Call, and you have the ERA Chairs Call. Okay. Mm-hmm. And then destination 3 is not even part of widening. So that is the European Research Area, which falls outside widening, and is a call which kind of supports the implementation of the European Research Area with specific calls to have this kind of coordination and open market for research for Europe.
So in other words, zooming out, it sort of tries to capture the elements you would need to deal with to eradicate a division.
Yes,
to facilitate content.
I would term it differently. So I look at the widening more as kind of tools to help you kind of improve your institution. So you have, for example, we have the university in Malta. So we've been encouraging them to take up a teaming project, to go for twinnings, to go for ERA chairs, for example, to go for the ERA fellowships. Like you try and put them into these calls where they can improve their situation. So with teaming, they are creating centers of excellence. With twinning, they are improving their kind of knowledge with an advanced country, helping them with the know-how. With the ERA talents, they are circulating talent from their university and inwards as well. With the ERA chairs, they are building capacity because they're bringing a foreign scientist to work in their organization and to develop further their, 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 their research capacity. So There are a few tools. I wouldn't say the country would benefit as a whole because it's more targeted towards the institutions. But yes, I mean, sometimes you see some nice cases which are a bit encouraging also for the country. But the ultimate beneficiary is always the institution who is active in these calls. So,
yeah. Thomas, do you have any questions?
No, Jan answered my question there. I was going to ask him to explain a little bit the difference between the calls. I don't know if we need more clarity on this, because twinning, teaming, error chairs, they all have slightly different functions, although maybe overlapping purposes.
Yeah, maybe you put these labels. I also stumble into them, but I haven't dug into it. So maybe also for my sake, better for to understand. So
if you want me to go into them, I mean, we can go through them. It's
just next 5 minutes, sort of giving a.
So basically, I mean, the big news is always teaming. So teaming is the largest call under widening. So there you have 15 million, which is taken from Horizon Europe, but then you have to co-finance with an extra 15 million, 8 to 15 million per project. Okay, and this goes towards the creation of centers of excellence, and it is a kind of precursor to having research infrastructures. Okay, so this is the way I see it. So I see the centers of excellence being developed, and then eventually they can kind of morph into a little bit of a research infrastructure. So that is for teaming. Then for twinning, you have this kind of twinning with an advanced institution, where you can improve your research capacity in a particular area. So you have the University of Malta, for example, it teams up with a university in Germany, and the university in Germany borrows its know-how to the Maltese institution to see how it can improve, to develop new courses, maybe to equip new labs, like new facilities, and this kind of stuff. And there is also a research component in the twinning. So I think they can take up to 20% or 30% to go towards a research project, a joint research project with the advanced institution. Then you have the European Excellence Initiative, which is open this year, and this is about the creation of alliances between universities, so around a specific topic. So you can have, for example, a topic on water, and then you get universities who are very active around Europe to join this project, and you create this alliance around water, and you'd have water as the kind of common topic of the alliance. Then you have the excellence hubs, which is a very interesting call. So and quite a big one as well. So you need, and it's different to all the other calls. So normally we say you need minimum of 3 entities from 3 different countries. In this case, you need 2 ecosystems made up of 4 partners, being the public, the private, NGOs, and the university, academia. Okay, so in each country you need to have these 4 players as a minimum, as a minimum criteria, and you need to have at least 2 of these 2 ecosystems. So you'd have, for example, one in Malta and one in Greece, for instance, and then you have this project to create an excellence hub around a specific topic, and the excellence hub has various components. So you have to have investment plans, how you're going to take it forward, how you're going to go to the market with it. You can pilot, prepare for pilots for your research. You have also a research component within the project. So it's quite big. Then we have this pathways to synergies, which was an interesting call, but it only ran once, unfortunately. And this is about trying to encourage those applicants who traditionally go through the ERDF, and then they decide to come into Horizon Europe. So it's kind of a bridge call to encourage these people to come to Horizon Europe and vice versa. So from Horizon Europe to go to the ERDF.
Okay.
This year, a novelty is that we're going to have the EIC pre-accelerator. We're very happy with this because all widening countries have been suffering a lot under the EIC. So we're hoping to increase our numbers through this call. It will be a new call which will be open probably in 2025. This will be for companies, for startups, to have small projects and to raise their TRL from TRL 3 to 4 to 5 to 6. So, so this could be interesting.
Thanks. I would also say that that's a nice component to get into it because it's many companies in all over Europe struggles with the EIC, but probably specifically from these countries. Mm-hmm. Now, thanks. Is there anything, or are there any specific elements in the financing or the funding rate structure that has been made a little different in order to support the specific target of this, of the work program? Is there any tricks they have made to support?
So basically, I mean, we started off with 100% funding everywhere. Okay, this is how widening started, except for the teaming part. So the teaming was always, I give you 8 to 15 million, and you give me 8 to 15 million through other sources, because the Center of Excellence has an infrastructure kind of element to it. So Horizon Europe does not fund the infrastructure, so the infrastructure money has to come from another source, either national funds or ERDF or RRF or whatever, from wherever you can bring it. Okay, so traditionally this is how it was. However, it's changing. So especially this year, we're going to see, for example, the regional innovation valleys, which is, I believe, 50% funded, the pre-EIC accelerator, which probably will be around 70% funded, and then you have those for now. So we are seeing a kind of shift to have more national investments pumped into these calls, which is not easy, I can tell you, because when you are an entity, not part of the government, and you would like to apply, it's not easy, because I mean, if you don't get money from the government or from private source, if you don't have the money, you cannot apply. So this is going to cut out money.
Yeah, so because indeed, often that is a huge issue in the accession countries, both south and east, that the money is, you don't have governments that have, the resources are a little less in the public finances, and especially something like this, it's very, then you fund yourself, so to say. Yeah, you find a way to struggle through whatever co-fundings there might be. So 100% was for sure made for this, but do you know what's the background for changing this?
I think for the pre-IC accelerator, we're probably following more the EIC model. For the other calls, I think we are encouraging more participation in the cluster calls, for example, rather than finding, many entities are finding a comfort zone in the widening calls, because there you have calls being funded, for example, for twinning. In the last call, we had 80 projects being funded. Whereas if you go to the clusters, you just have 1 or 2, maximum, if you're lucky, 5 projects being funded. So the risk is greater in the clusters than it is for widening. So people feel more comfortable going to widening, saying, okay, I can be 1 of 8 instead of 1 of 2 or 1 of 5. So, and I think they this kind of is helping with a little bit of a shift. So to make people shift from the widening more into the clusters and other parts of the program. I don't know how much it will help though, but at least this is the way I see it from my side.
Yeah. Thomas, do you have any questions?
No, I think that's all right. It was nicely explained, Jan.
Thanks for this. let's move into, because now we sort of framed what we're talking about here. So now, as we mentioned in the beginning, there's a discussion now. So, and when you come to a discussion about whether you should restructure some of these things, you always look at the experience. So that's the next block we have. We have a little bit of talk about what has been happening. Yeah? So it has a certain age now, the work program. So there should be something that we can take and look at. Yeah, what has happened? What has it served the purpose? Or now, has it? Has it reached the targets, Ian? Do you know that? What are you talking about in the program committee about the because I know that's what's happening in the program committee. So you look at what happened, you look at statistics, you look at figures, you look at what has happened in previous, but how should we adjust accordingly and so on?
Look, I'll be honest. So what we've talked about before, we have already mentioned that we've seen a slight increase in the participation of the widening countries in the other parts of the program. Okay, So now we're around 13 to 15%. Before it was less, I believe it was around 8%. So in that sense, there has been an improvement. Okay, then from the way I see it from my side, is that there is a little bit of a split also within the widening countries. There are some widening countries which are doing extremely well. Okay, but then you have a good chunk of countries really, really struggling. So, and I undertook this kind of small study where I was trying to see this, separating the successful widening countries from the less successful, and there they are still struggling. So even if you go to the clusters, so research infrastructures, for example, we are at very low levels, like 2%, 3%, 4% participation, which is still extremely low. So I think the impact of widening has had different impact on different countries. If you take, for example, the case of Cyprus has been really at the forefront of claiming many teaming projects. So there you have you have a number of projects which are not small, like, for example, the twinning, you get 1.5 million per project. With teaming, you get 15 million. So it's like nearly 12 twinning projects at one go, So in that sense, Cyprus has done really well. I think they're in their 7th or 8th teaming project, if I'm not mistaken. We, for example, and we struggle with this. We haven't managed yet to get not even one teaming project. So you can see the differences. In terms of institution building, I think it's had a positive impact, because when I look at our universities, when I look at our higher education institutions, when I look at certain entities operating locally and active in the widening calls, it has had positive impacts, because, for example, university, they would increase their courses, they internationalize a little bit more, so they have become more open, they are joining new networks, and you can see it. But maybe not as fast as we wanted it to be. So I think that there is still room for more widening actions to really overcome these barriers that we've been talking about for so long.
Jan, could you tell me, from your point of view, why you think Cyprus has managed to be so successful in comparison to some other countries? Because it's not because it's interesting, Cyprus as a case, because it's a small country. So there are much bigger, in terms of population, there are much bigger countries in the widening. So it's not necessarily a population question, it's something else.
I think it's the commitment from the government. Put bluntly. So the government has understood the benefits that can come out of a teaming and how much they can leverage more funding than they could. So really and truly, I think teaming is a call which is very much in the hands of the politicians. So if the politicians allow for the unblocking of funding, both national and ERDF funding, okay, to go towards these projects, then we could have many. The problem that we had was that it was not always easy to unblock this money centrally. However, now there is, the awareness has been raised, and now sort of there is more openness from our government to kind of open up for more widening projects. But it has its risks, so it's understandable that certain institutions might be afraid to venture. 15 million can be a lot of money when it goes to research for a very small economy. So one would have to see to that as well.
I guess that if let's Cyprus, if they have politically are supporting and backing this and taking their measures and so on, then is it then also an issue, because then what you would need as partnering up in consortium knows we go with Cyprus because we know that there are no problems with Cyprus to have them as have them in. Is there an element?
No, not really. It's
Okay.
normally the widening country who kind of decides, look, I want a teaming project, and we go for it, and we look for the advanced partner.
Okay.
Okay, so
I understand.
So it's not the other way around for teaming. Obviously, once you have a center of excellence up and running, then the chances of increasing your project portfolio becomes bigger because you are specializing. So you become a specialist, you become an expert in that particular field, and then you have obviously you attract attention also from abroad, and when they are applying for projects, they would say, there's a center of excellence in this area, so we should bring them on board as well. So
So you mentioned a really interesting point, which is this synergy between the regional funds, ERDF, and Horizon Europe. So from your point of view, it's crucial to get this right for the member states to create the possibility to have co-funding or to cross-match these funds in order for widening to be successful and for the country in general to be successful.
Yeah. So what I didn't mention in my introduction is that I am also involved in projects. So I'm also involved in the NCP WIDERANET and also in the Wider Advanced facility, which is a new facility. We had the kickoff just last week, which will be looking into valorizing the dissemination exploitation efforts of the widening project. So it's going to be a very interesting facility. And we are the work package leader in both projects for synergies with other programs. This has been given quite a lot of prominence. So we've done a lot of work on these synergies and how they can affect actually the funding for the EU, for the widening countries. And they actually help a lot. So if you have the right components in place where you can co-finance and help structurally and infrastructure money from ERDF to mobilize it to complement your widening cause, it could be the perfect recipe to advance in your research. Unfortunately, when the ERDF was being drafted before the start of Horizon Europe, we did not cater for this element. So we were giving out our R&D money towards private entities, trying to help startups, trying to equip them with money to kind of improve their research capacities. The money was going a lot to infrastructure of large infrastructure, like in hospitals, for example, which might not necessarily be addressing the needs of the research community. Okay. Obviously now we've learned this kind of trick, and we hope that in the next programming period we will be able to address this. to have more money that can be mobilized to support more the widening program. We do have the transfer of funds, which is an interesting element in our ERDF, which is a novelty actually. So what we do, we have certain calls which are mono-beneficiary, and when they apply to these calls, if they are above threshold, but there is not enough budget to fund them from Horizon Europe, we can transfer the money to them, and then they can get funded also through our ERDF money. So in that respect, it's an interesting development, but it has its limitations. So I wouldn't say it's working super perfect. It's not working bad, but I think it can be much more improved. So if more money can be pumped into it, if for example it can be widened a little bit, that it's not only one beneficiary calls, if it like we can spend more money per year. So there are various elements to it. So, but I think it's a good scheme that we have this year. So in this programming period, sorry.
Malta is a pioneer in this.
Yes.
In this as well. One of the first, maybe the first country to.
Yes, it was us and Lithuania.
Right. He tried this transfer of funds. Yeah. So you'll have to keep us up to date on.
Yes.
On how it goes.
It's going well. It's going well. So this year I think we're going to have the full absorption. I think.
And
Nice.
just going back. Sorry, Niels, but just going back a little bit to the synergy between ERDF and Horizon Europe. Why is it so complicated to co-finance, to use these funds together?
Well, it's you know EU programming. EU programming is not a walk in the park. So when you apply for a call, it's like doomsday completely. I mean, it's so difficult to apply for a call that. I mean, many people don't even start. So can you imagine having to apply to two programs, or having the timing at different timings? So sometimes it's a matter of timing. Sometimes it's a matter of procedure. Sometimes it's a matter of state aid. So there are many elements that need to be tweaked, maybe not by the member states themselves, but maybe at a higher level, where the synergies can be encouraged in a way that there is like a seamless, what I like to call this seamless synergy. That look, you apply for this call and automatically you are you qualify for the synergy under ERDF. Okay, so this is how it has to work if we really want synergies to really go forward. Because an individual applicant having to start from scratch, having to apply for two programs at one go, it's not easy.
No, few would have the resources. So
and then when you consider things like state aid, I mean that goes beyond everyone. So and sometimes with ERDF you also have another co-financing with the national fund. So it's not always 100% funded. But you also have to, apart from that, also apply for co-financing with the government. So can you imagine what a maze you get into?
no. What's the atmosphere in the program committee?
The program committee.
Yeah. Is it? Do you have fights over the basis of it itself, or is there any discussion? What? I know you cannot refer to in all discretion to in any details, but what's the atmosphere in the program committee?
No, I think it's a very nice atmosphere. We all actually get along quite well. Yeah. We do have sometimes these like crazy ideas, for example, calls which are supposed to be for widening that all of a sudden become part of the full program, and they lose the widening streak, and that is where sometimes there is a little bit of not clashes but
annoyance.
Like the more discussion because part of it is that we try to keep the widening calls as much as possible together. So we try to keep the widening calls for widening countries rather than opening them up to the rest, because otherwise it's useless that it's within widening. So in reality, that's the most discussions we have. Otherwise, it's the normal work of a program committee where you discuss the work program, you discuss the details of the work program, you discuss the results when they come out. You see the participation of the member states, how they have evolved in the calls, etc. Otherwise, we have a program committee on Thursday, I believe, next week. So, but it's going to be online. So we get updates on the European Research Area, for instance, in the program committee. So it's a normal program committee, I would say.
Did you? Of course you did. Probably can't share anything. But when this discussion about whether it should be there or not, widening started, is there a consensus that is supposed to be stay like this in the program committee, or was there a rumble in there? Yeah, because obviously you must have discussed this.
So the program committee has not discussed it. Okay. The only thing that we've been hearing from the program committee is we are planning up to 2027. What happens after 2027, we will then see.
So it's very formal like this.
Okay, yes. So that's as much as we've heard. However, you must have heard of the joint position paper of the EU15.
Yeah.
So we were very much involved in the drafting of this paper, and it got the approval of all the EU15 countries, where they made some very bold statements in this statement. So the ministers have signed off this statement, and it was also tabled in an informal council of ministers. So
could you recap for us some of the points that were in this statement?
Yes.
It was towards the end of last year, if I remember, November.
Yes, correct. I think it was in the November Council, if not October. But it was definitely in the fourth quarter. So basically, it's a short statement. It was a statement by the EU15 widening countries where we are supporting the widening actions. We are saying that widening is very beneficial for our economies, and that we would like to see it as part of the program in the next framework program. We would like to see an increase in the budget, possibly double the budget. The success rates, you know how they are. So in some calls they are as the success rate is as low as the ERC, for example, with 5%. So really we need to beef up the widening budget. Essentially that was it. So it wasn't quite a long statement. There was also some text in it stating that we are willing to work towards having this kind of to preserve the widening part. So willing to work together, and also willing to work with those initiatives, those calls which have proved to be beneficial, and we are also willing to tweak those which might not be reaping the results that we hoped they would be reaping. So
probably clever diplomacy, funding scheme diplomacy there. We are already now actually moving into, moving from experience to perspectives. So maybe we should just move into, because here the bullets I put, it's pretty much what we already talked about here. But of course, last block, perspectives on the debate. Yeah. So it's so we have been talking a little bit about what you're discussing and so on. But is there anything? So what the Danes suggested was to say we slash it from the framework program and move this kind of activity into the cohesion program. Now, then you will lose the bridge, so to say, the activity to this focused R&D and research, development, and innovation part, where you do put the communities together specifically like this. It's more going to be support for accession countries. But can you give your 2 cents on this, Ian?
Can I make it?
Sure, more, Thomas.
Just to play devil's advocate, right? So to I guess give the Danish perspective, or Denmark is not the only country who supports this idea of taking away widening, right? So there are other member states that are thinking along these lines. I think that one of their main arguments that we hear regularly is that there are regions of France, Italy, Netherlands, maybe not Netherlands, but there are regions in these countries who perform worse in terms of R&I than regions within Poland, Czechia, whatever, right?
Yeah.
So why not fund regionally this program rather than nationally? Mm-hmm. So I think this is one of the arguments for moving it, is that it should be targeted regionally. I think the other argument, and this question comes up still, and I find it almost irritating now, is that they think that widening is not excellent, so it doesn't belong in Horizon Europe. I think these are the main points. So maybe, Jan, if you want to sort of tackle, imagine that I'm Denmark here. If you want to give me your riposte.
Look, how should I put it the most diplomatic I can? So,
don't have to be diplomatic, but I get.
Okay, so why are the EU15 in the widening? Because there is a structural problem from the national level. Okay, so this talk of boiling it down to the regional level doesn't hold, because, for example, let's take the case of our neighbor, of Italy, for example. So Italy is one of the advanced countries. They have applicants like across the program, wherever you whenever we see the results, they have quite a number of applicants all over the place. What does it take for an Italian company in Rome or Milan, which is extremely successful, to open up a branch in Sicily, for example, where they are lagging behind in science? Nothing. Okay, so so maybe there is a little bit of this also uncertainty of these entities, how they can establish themselves within the regions of a given country. Okay, I don't know. I'll be honest with you. I don't know how this can be tackled at the level of widening. The way I see it is that the countries in the widening the EU15 are struggling at the national levels, because it's a national problem. But then, I mean, if you start bringing in the regions, and we've been already open with the outermost regions, and those have been accepted in this current framework program. They were accepted because they do have specific issues like us. So, for example, if you take Réunion, for instance, which we collaborate very well with, and Azores and the Canary Islands, for instance, you can see that they are facing similar problems to what we are facing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, for them, it's contained. So it's contained within an island off or very far away from the capital. Mm. However, they do have excellent institutions. For example, we see a lot of results, for example, where entities applying from the Azores, from the Canary Islands, and from Réunion, for instance, coming first. So they get full marks, whereas we struggle to get a 12 or 13. So really they even when you look at the call, when they write it, probably they have more support than we have already. So and this could be the same with the regions. So they would probably have more support than our entities would have.
I think, honestly, there is a lot of support for regions in the EU system. You don't have to divide this up now and say, it needs to be. There is a lot of places they can go. The framework program system, you even within the framework program have often specific. You had the whole rural renaissance focus back some years ago. You have corners where you can address these kind of things at if you have internally in advanced countries also, because obviously you have areas in Spain and in Greece, and I don't know if Greece is counted, but Denmark, Sweden, you have areas where they're struggling a little bit, but you cannot compare it to what has been trying to be done here in the widening program. It's a totally different thing. Here, trying to make connection, make it upscale, lift up the research capacities in countries where it has been downgraded or where it has not been simply resources to do something about that. So it's like comparing pears and apples, if you ask me. So honor the motivation for why you did this in the first place, and then if you have issues with your regions in France or in Germany, or then take that discussion in another place. And look at the widening program for what it is, why it was made. Is that successful or not? Should it be okay? You can always have a discussion whether it should be there or not. Is it serving its purpose? What is the success rate? So to say, are we meeting our targets with why we made the program in the first place? Things change all the time within the framework program, right? But don't throw in something else like this to mud the picture, because that's.
Jan, do you agree?
I agree. I mean, if the regions are going to be brought in from the advanced countries, I think widening is finished completely.
Yeah.
And there's questions over whether or not, so let's say if we took the widening program out of Horizon Europe and placed it in Cohesion Funds and ERDF, there's questions about whether that program is even set up to support research or not.
It's going to exclude the widening countries even further. So it will deplete our participation rates in Horizon Europe drastically. If I can show you the results for Malta so far under Horizon Europe, we have around 40% or 45% of our participation is through widening, which is a big chunk. If you take that out, what are we left with then?
I think one of the questions that you have to answer on that then as well is that the ultimate goal of the widening program is to get countries, institutes, researchers into the main heart of the program. So there's a question of whether or not that specific element of the widening is working.
I think it has worked, because even we have seen an increase in our participation in the rest of the program. So I mean,
do you have statistics in the program committee, but do they collect data on these?
They give more holistic data, so more general data. But for example, if you go into the dashboard, you can easily filter out the results per country. For example, for the widening country, who is active, who is not. It can be easily retrieved from there.
Yeah. I don't know how much longer we should wait, but maybe. So what I put here, what would be the alternative? Now you said it's going to have a huge effect on on the collection for Malta, so to say, of success rates there. But could there be an alternative way of building things to sort of trying to build diplomatically trying to find a way through that is acceptable for all? Or
ideally, one would have the widening remaining, maybe tweaked a little bit to cater for still. I mean, to cater better for the widening countries. Okay. However, if this does not fly, then the only other alternative that I see would be having calls, for example, such as where you open up these closed clubs, because this is another problem we haven't talked about.
Exactly.
So the closed clubs are a problem because you have certain calls which are completely closed to any new members.
Yeah.
We had an issue now. So there was a call where we have quite a good entity wanting to apply for this call. We got to know that it's being coordinated by an entity who has already is, I think, on the third or the fourth round already of getting this call. And we contacted the coordinator, and the coordinator was shut the door and said we have no space for new entities. So that call is completely lost from has to be forgotten from our radar completely, because they are not willing to take on any new members. So this closed clubs is another thing. So these closed clubs, how did they come? They came. There's a history to this, because when you're in a program such as FP7, FP6, working for so many years together, you got used to your consortium. You work perfectly with them. I mean, you don't need anyone else. So
the Commission doesn't like to hear what I'm saying now. But the thing is, what also happens is that the Commission gets used to that consortium
as well. Yes,
and it is not. They hate when you say it loud. But the fact is, because this is supposed to be an impartial program, right? Everybody's supposed to be able to approach any call, and it will be valued. It will be evaluated equally. Now, the fact is that you even have specific calls being designed for specific collaborations. It's a fact. And especially when you're a grants consultant, as I used to be, these kind of intelligence would sieve out and say, but don't approach that call because it's already sold. And the fact was always, when we ended up with the what do you say, the decisions, the valuations came out, those consortia would get the funding. Now,
some calls are a no-go. So some calls are just, I mean, they're there. They already know who is going to get it, and it's useless even trying an effort. So,
is there a part, in your experience, Jan, is there a part of the program that is particularly bad for that? For example, is it some of the clusters, or is it some of the research infrastructures? It's all over, yeah.
All over but in the clusters, yes, there are a lot. And you know what's most striking, actually, if you go to the hop-on call, okay? So on the hop-on call, there is a list of eligible projects for hop-on. So the hop-on, I didn't mention it earlier, but the hop-on is a new scheme which is under widening, where a widening country is allowed to hop on to a project which is already running. Okay?
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And these are normally cluster 2 and EIC. And when you see the list, it's impressive. The hundreds of projects there are where there are no widening countries in them, it's huge, which before I didn't realize. So I thought maybe the list would be quite small, maybe, I don't know, 80, 120 projects, not more. Yeah. But there are hundreds there.
Yeah. When you have consortia of 30 different members, you expect one of them to be from. Yeah.
When you consider that all these projects don't even have one widening country, so these are the projects that have been coming from very far away, like applying one call after the other, and possibly even more calls, because once you're in a project, then you start applying. All right, and they are a completely closed clubs, and we realize it's a closed clubs because our entities try to apply to them. They send them the email, they send their expression of interest, and they don't even reply. And I mean, even though there are hundreds of projects, but the pool is extremely small of those willing to open up, extremely small. So this year we managed to get at least four. But the amount of people I've helped to try to get onto a project was incredible. I mean, we were lucky we got four. I don't know how we got these four, but
I think I noticed an article coming out from Science Business, your old employer, Thomas, that the blind evaluations are supposed to ram up. That it's something that's gaining ground in the commission that they're supposed to do. That this should help. No matter what, it should help, because of course some of the applications they can say, oh, it comes from them. But if you strip from the application that they can read access, if you strip the partners, obviously it's going to be much more level ground there.
It's not easy, Niels. So it's in some proposals, it's not easy to completely eradicate the partners, because sometimes if you have, for example, a pilot being implemented in Malta, and maybe you know a little bit the Maltese ecosystem, then it's quite easy to make 1+1 and you know who is applying.
Yeah.
Or if someone comes with previous background, with specific foreground, for example, I mean, it has to be mentioned because it's part of the proposal. So if
I don't know how they do them.
Me neither. I'm not really. But from what I understood, they just cross off the names of the partners. That's all. They don't go any deeper than that. So if in the proposal you have, for example, some text about the Maltese ecosystem, for example, you know that this is someone from Malta applying, or you know.
Obviously, it's like an arms race, right? So if you do this, then in the proposal writing part of the community, they're going to find ways to make it obvious who's applying without mentioning the name. I don't think. Do we have anything else to perspective? Should we sum up?
The only thing is, when you're talking about alternatives, there's a lot of calls now from widening countries to mainstream, is that what they're calling it? Mainstream widening across the program. And I don't know, do you know what is meant by this, Ian?
So the mainstreaming is having a widening component within the calls. So like, for example, as I mentioned before, you open up the calls that they need to have at least 20% of the consortium have to be from widening, for example, or having the cluster 1 calls, for example, having 2 calls which are targeted towards widening countries, or stating that you need at least 20% of the evaluated proposals to be coordinated by a widening country. So that is what mainstreaming is about.
Yeah, some countries are calling for this. So this is one of the sort of, I'm not sure alternative, but it's one of the.
I know that there are some widening countries calling for this. Personally, I don't agree. I don't agree, and I'll tell you why I don't agree. Because many years ago, I was the INCO delegate for international cooperation within, I believe it was FP7. Then I remember a huge drive telling us that, look, international cooperation is now going to be mainstreamed across the program. We're going to have calls all over the place. The networks are going to become stronger. I mean, all this talk. Come Horizon 2020, and the international cooperation that we knew completely died. Completely. So it was like completely gone. I mean, now you have fragments here and there of international cooperation, but there is no.
Yeah.
I think that's it for now. Now we're going to. I reached out to 2 projects, 2 coordinators, to invite them in for a conversation together with Thomas and me. have a practical view into what is happening in projects funded under the Widening Programme. Now, they were both baffled. What do you mean that we are supposed to connect, to make a connection between our institutions in widening countries, and so it's going to be an interesting conversation, because obviously they should have had some sort of element of this since they've been applying through the Widening Programme. So that's fine. It has not been planned yet. I've been reaching out, and they both agreed. But so the next episode in this series will be with them. So we'll get back to that when that can be planned. It's obviously going to be a while, because first we need to establish and then record. So, yeah. Thomas, do you have any last words?
I saw relatively recently Research Commissioner Zairema saying that she believes widening should continue.
No.
So I think, looking to the future, we can be relatively optimistic that it will remain as part of the program. But in what scope it exists, I don't know.
That's a good starting point then, if you're widening support.
Yeah, exactly. For team widening.
Uh-huh. Ian, do you have anything you want to say, summing things up?
Yes. So basically, I second what Thomas has just said. Hopefully, the new program can bring more opportunities. So the way I see it at the moment, I see it quite limited because the budget has been slashed so little for the problem it needs to tackle, that it can definitely benefit from more budget, better success rates, and possibly moving out the European research area calls into the program or into another part of the program. It could have, for example, in Pillar 1, it could easily fit in there, and dedicating really all the money really for widening to go really to the right place. So this is my take on it.
Thanks. It's been a pleasure for you to come in here, having a talk with Thomas and me on this, opening up the program, opening up what this is and the experience. So thanks for that, Ian.
Thank you. Likewise.
There. Now I'm just going to shut the program before me and Thomas and I were going to say goodbye. So thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. If you like what you've been listening to, and if you're a newbie, you should go to my platform, thegrant.eu. You can also just scroll down in Spotify or Apple Podcast where you listen and continue listening to episodes there. So there's a whole lot of things there on the platform. Categorize things, the episodes, so you have more than 150 episodes to browse through. When you're there, don't forget to subscribe to my email list. That's supporting me as an independent podcaster. So thanks in advance for that. And finally, of course, connect with Thomas and myself on LinkedIn. I will put also Ian, your LinkedIn profile. I will put a link up there. So on the episode side of this episode, so you can go there and connect directly with all three of us. Also go and like the Grant page. That's also going to help me a lot, and that's where I put all my marketing for new episodes and so on. That's where the flow is of liking and sharing, and that's also where I pick up new guests. And specifically, I would say, if you have something to say about the widening in the context of this series, don't hesitate reaching out to Thomas or myself. You're more than welcome into the show. We have not put an end to the series, so to say. We don't know how many episodes. We're going to run this as long as we want. So yeah, if you have anything to say, if you want to share, please do reach out. That's it. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you.
Thank you very much to both of you.
And let's say goodbye to dear listeners. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to this episode of The Grant. All the Grant episodes have their own site on the Grant website. You'll find a link to the episode site where you listen to your podcast. On the site for this episode, you'll find a link to Thomas and Ian's personal LinkedIn sites, and further there will be a link to the Widening Programme site. Next week, it is time for a new round of the Grant Communication Shorts episodes, and a chance to win the Grant mug, which this week went to Brussels, the first one. See you next week.